Welcome back to Breaking Battlegrounds. My next guest is Jennifer Galardi. She's a senior policy analyst for Restoring America Wellness in the Heritage Foundation DeVos Center. She has written many things for The Blaze, Washington Examiner, Epic Times. She has had experience in the fitness and nutrition industries. She's an expert on MAHA. We're going to talk a little bit about that today, but we're also going to talk about the Fauci Diaries and the aftermath of what's happened to it. So, Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I've been, the Fauci thing fascinates me, and I'll tell you why. When COVID first hit, I really don't blame decisions on anybody the first 60 days. They didn't know what was going on.
Agreed.
What made me upset about it is when they knew things weren't working and they just refused to show meekness and humility and change things up and just say, we don't know, which may have been scary to some people, but it would have been honest, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't think you would have the anger towards science now, the medical community. They just weren't honest about it. And someone used a good example. He said, did you ever see the movie Dark Knight? And it's one of the Batman movies. And Harvey Dent he's this idealistic prosecutor. And because of ego, he becomes Two-Face. And he says, I always think of Anthony Fauci that way. I don't think he started with bad intentions. I think early in his career, he sat in the room and he was a dedicated public servant, but the diaries just show he became this egotist, that he shows the old axiom, power corrupts. What are your takeaway from the diaries besides the obvious egomaniac he is?
Well, there's power corrupts, and the continuation of that is absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Right.
And I think he got a taste and he ended up at the far end of that spectrum. But I will say he really is just he's the epitome of this technocratic, managerial, elite government class from day one. Like, yes, he's a public servant, but that's pretty much all he's done. So
right.
His illustrious career started back in the AIDS epidemic, and he failed there. I don't know the exact story. He either withheld better drugs or pushed drugs, the atrazine, I believe, that actually killed a lot of people in the gay community. He was a failure then. He was a failure during Ebola. I don't know that he was a failure, but he was seeking the spotlight. So there is a clip going around with Dr. Marty Makary. I don't know if you've seen it. Where Dr. Makary is explaining what Fauci did during Ebola, which is essentially take a patient they called nurse number one who had Ebola, was quarantined in a hospital in Texas, was doing fine. There was no panic. Everything protocol was followed. And he made this big scene of flying her using taxpayer dollars to the NIH to have a photo op, to put on that spacesuit, right? The protective gear, like, I'm saving the world. And, it's not a far stretch. I'm not a therapist, but again, a lot of us have common sense. He's a small man in stature, physically. He really didn't have a position of power. He was a bureaucrat. And he got a little taste of himself. He got it throughout his career, right? During these certain periods of time. And then he really got a taste of it during COVID. And like you said, it kicked into full gear. He became, as we all know, I am the science. I mean, that infamous quote, it's really just a testament to the direction our government has gone.
Yes.
Deep, whatever you want to call it, the deep state. Do I think there's a bunch of men having cigars in some smoke-filled room and trying to take over the world? No, but this is the nature of human nature, is that, like you said, you get a taste of this and people have this control, and then this thing is self-sustaining. It feeds off of itself, and it just grows into this big bureaucratic state where we no longer have control of it.
It reminds me, there's this great movie, and I forget the name, where Alec Baldwin's being sued for malpractice. He's the head of cardiac surgery at some famous hospital. He graduated Harvard. He's in a deposition. And they ask him all these questions. He goes, when that patient's looking up, they're praying to a God. I am God. And I sort of felt that's what he I sort of felt like what he got into because he got so much praise. No, it didn't seem like anybody was checking him. But we all know he's a narcissist. So there's where and he's proven it. There's no, any therapist can do it now. What do you think his actions did that deserved the most public scrutiny? Of all the actions he did, what do you think deserves the most public scrutiny?
Okay, this is my number one.
Okay.
I have a couple. Number one for me, it's tied. I'll give you two number ones. But the one that immediately comes to mind that I always think about is letting our elderly die alone.
Yeah.
Forcing people, I don't know why I get really emotional, but I think probably because I'm a Christian, that I feel like death is almost a rebirth. We're being called, and you should be surrounded by people you love. You should not be separated from your family, from the people. Allowing people to die alone because of the 6 feet apart or Zoom calls, or it is anti-human. You have to be some sort of psychopath to allow that, for me. The next thing would be the kids, right? The development, the learning loss, the kind of retardation of social emotional skills, like the connection. But children, they can rebound. Not all of them have. We've seen the data. It's been hard, right? It's been very hard for that generation that missed bar and bat mitzvahs, that missed these milestones of life, but they'll have more milestones to go, right?
Right.
Death is the ultimate. It is the end.
Pretty big milestone.
Life here.
Pretty big milestone.
Yeah, it is.
It's the ultimate milestone, right?
It is. It's the ushering. It's death and birth, right? You're ushered in and you're ushered out, and it's that connection point, and you've just severed someone's connection point. So again, I will say that's my number one. My number two was children. An entire generation lost their youth, kind of their ability to connect in person during very important developmental years, social skills, even speech skills. Oh, we can do all this. And this was even way before we're finding out, way before the pandemic, where people were forced on screens, that we were giving children screens to learn on in the name of technology, and education can help advance skills. There will never be a replacement for human beings. There will never be a replacement for a teacher in a classroom tending to a student's needs, seeing emotion, feeling emotion. You just don't get that through a screen. And then, so COVID just forced that en masse for everybody. And then the third thing is obviously the destruction in public trust in our health institutions. That's number three for me.
Yeah. Did you read the diaries? Have you read them all completely, or just hear bits in here?
No. Of Fauci's diaries?
Yeah.
No. I mean, I've read enough. You don't really need.
Let me ask you this question. There were scientific disagreements during COVID, correct? I mean, there's people, and if Biden had his way, if Biden had his way, you'd never heard any of them. They really censored a lot of people, or they were scared.
Yes. Oh yeah, there was definitely scientific dissension from the narrative, but the narrative, I question whether they even believed in their own narrative, because you had data. I had at the time, well, actually shortly thereafter, I went back to get my master's in public policy at Pepperdine late, like I just graduated in 23, and I had a data professor, Brian Gable, who was writing. He was writing op-eds. He lived in Santa Barbara, taught at Pepperdine, was writing op-eds, was writing letters to Newsom's office. This data is terrible. These modeling predictions you are doing to predict the amount of deaths, to predict hospital capacity, these models are terrible. Any data analysis could look and see the flaws with it. They used a flawed model. And when you had people saying this is flawed and they don't listen, and kept perpetuating these ideas of, remember the ticker tape of death that was like on CNN and Fox News, was like, how many deaths today? Well, those methods of reporting were flawed. I mean, there was so much wrong with it that it's hard to believe that they actually thought, like Anthony Fauci, the 6 feet apart rule, the masking rule, the prediction of how many hospital beds they would need. I don't know, if I lived in California at the time. There was like a ship. They brought in like a barge
Right.
It was the worst failed policy ever carried out, I believe, in
Well,
history.
I'll tell you when I knew that many of the numbers were made up. So I had a physical
Mhm.
visit with my general practitioner. You kept hearing about all these ER doctors just exhausted, right? That they're working 20 hours a day, yada yada. So I asked my doctor. I said, "Well, have you volunteered to go help?" Right? Because there was a lot of things even a dentist could do. Right? There
Right.
was plenty. We had plenty of medical personnel to help with this crisis. And he said, "I gave them my name 8 months ago. I have not heard anything."
Yeah.
And I would have been happy to go in at night or during the day and help out. And I go, "Why do you think that is?" He goes, "I don't think they have as many people as they're saying." That was his
Well,
thing. He goes, "Because I know a dozen friends of mine here that have all done the same thing. We have not got one call."
and I hate to be brash and somewhat crass, but for the policies that they enacted, particularly in California, for the
Hmm.
insanity of the policies, the lockdowns, like, arresting people in the middle of the ocean by themselves paddleboarding, which happened.
Right.
If you're going to that extreme, I want to see people dropping dead in the street. That was my. I want everybody I know to be sick as a dog and on their deathbed. And the fact was that wasn't the case. That was not the case. Healthy people were recovering. We knew the people that were really being affected had one, two, three, four, five, six chronic diseases. We knew vitamin D, sunshine, exercise. This was a type of flu that if you were already had a crappy immune system because you were overweight, if you were not healthy, it affected you worse.
Well, and you bring up a great point because we're not, you and I are not in any way demeaning people who actually had it. It was real, but they exaggerated some things. They didn't focus on the people that really needed the focus. They did
Mhm.
a broad stroke. These kids and vaccines. I mean, they just did everything overboard. And I'm still trying to figure out if they thought that was the best, they believed their own lies, or they wanted control. It's a weird thing.
You have to ask why, right?
Yeah.
That's the question. Why did they do that? And I believe, like you said, I believe it was the latter. I
Yeah.
think it's control, and they were testing to see how far they could push it. How afraid could they make people? How much would it take before people go, I capitulate. Give me the digital passport. Give me the vaccine passport. Give me digital ID. Give me all of it. I don't care. They are seeing how far they can get away with safetyism,
Yeah.
with the idea that we will do all of this in the name of public safety. By the way, not the government's job. I have gone so far on the other side of this is like, I don't think our health insurance should be tied to our employment. I don't think the government is in the business of gain of function trying to predict a pandemic. I don't believe that. Your health is your responsibility. Now, the question becomes, have we been, one, given the wrong information about our health, about what truly makes us healthy at the to benefit corporations? So that's where it becomes difficult, because we are now involved in a system where a lot of people profit off of us not
Yes.
being well.
Yes.
So, it's now hard to tell people, oh, take back control of your own health. That you're like, well, I followed the nutritional guidelines. I did what my doctor told me to. I was taking the medications he told me to. And it's the same in agriculture. It's when you had government so involved, as you probably know, once you establish policy, it's really hard to retract policy.
Yeah. No, it is. We're with Jennifer Galardi. She is a senior policy analyst at Restoring American Wellness at the Heritage Foundation. All right. Last question here before we let you go. Tell us about the Make America Healthy Again movement.
Mhm.
And how do you think it's changing Americans' perception of health culturally? Because that's a big part. So, for example, right now we have the Sophie Cunningham situation. I mean, she made a very common sense statement, and you'd think she said nuclear weapons are great for everybody, right? I mean, it's how people are reacting to it, and it's just a common sense thing, right? I think she was one off. I'm done. Let's move on, right? But with Trump getting elected second time, I don't think she could have done this 3 years ago without being run off that team. Now they can't do it, right? A majority of people just said, I'm done with this crap. I'm not doing this. I'm not being cowered into my opinions anymore. You can think whatever crazy thing you want, but I'm going to call it out. Is there that type of cultural shift happening with the MAHA movement and regarding people taking control of their health and questioning their doctors? And there's nothing wrong questioning your doctors, but do you see that culturally happening?
Yeah, I mean, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to, the doctor-patient relationship is not the doctor tells you what to do. It's a conversation about your
That's why
health.
they always say get a second opinion.
Yeah, remember that used to be popular, get a second opinion. Now it's like, don't question me. I'm the
Right.
expert. Again, it goes back to that expert class because they've been told that they are God. And I will go deep down this philosophical hole of the lack of religion, and these are new religions. Vaccine, it's why Aaron Siri calls his books Vaccines Amen, right?
Right.
These are the new religions. Government policies are the new religion, right? Transgender stuff is the new religion. This is what happens when there's a void of a real God or a real belief or a real faith, is that you are going to make something your religion. And
Right.
unfortunately, it's become public health, and it's become transgender cult, and it's become DEI or racism, right? These are their new religions. So this is why you see this fanatical behavior. And I do think it's why people are tired of being told what to do by their doctors and no longer having a conversation. Now,
Right.
on the flip side of that, I'll support some doctors because I do believe there's some fabulous people doing fabulous work out there. They got entrapped in a system that said, all your job is to get the symptoms, get it, and to code it for the insurance, and then give them the prescription. And they don't have time. They literally do not have the time to have a conversation with the patient. And those that do don't accept insurance anymore, right? Functional medicine doctors, people that are trying to connect the dots between your diet, your sleep, your relationships, your exercise, not just, oh, you're a heart to be fixed or you're an organ to be repaired. You are a holistic human being that has all these different inputs. And how is that affecting your health? Doctors don't have the time to do that anymore, even as much as some of them might like to. So I think people, again, I do believe a free market is a great solution, but we don't have a free market right now. You've got hospitals, you've got NGOs, right? What happens if people don't have cancer anymore? What happens to Breast Cancer Awareness Month, this awareness month, people raising money, galas, huge hospitals, research hospitals. If we just got down to like the basic nuts and bolts of being healthy, um, there's a lot of money to be made in this. So I think people are seeing that, and they are trying to take some sovereignty back, some control over their own health. And as simple as it sounds, the eat real food message and get
Yeah.
outside, get sunlight, touch grass, make a dinner table again, have family conversations. I think people are longing for this real connection again in all aspects of life, which will affect our health. And we're seeing some people respond accordingly. And I do think the messaging, you mentioned this, the most positive thing for me, for Kennedy, policy can only change so much. I love this cooking show he's got. It's the messaging. It's really
Yeah.
getting out there to people to like, it doesn't have to be this complicated. You shouldn't be on 15 medications to manage something. You don't actually have to be. Diabetes is reversible. It's not
Yes.
something, it's not something you have to live with. And this, I point this out a lot to when I talk to interns or high school students, is we were so focused on infectious disease that you get something, right? You get a disease, you get AIDS, you get coronavirus, you get this. And now the problem is we have an epidemic of chronic disease, which means you can change it. You can change obesity. You can
Right.
reverse your diabetes. You don't have to have high blood pressure. It just needs to be, we need to make sure that we're giving good recommendations. And actually, if you don't like the FDA recommendations, go somewhere else. Like, The government should not be the final arbiter of what is good for you. And that's what people are seeing. I trusted them. They've tried to bamboozle me with COVID, with the so-called vaccines that weren't really vaccines. And I'm not trusting them anymore. I'm going to take this,
Right.
I'm going to go have conversations. I am going to go do my own research.
Yeah.
Not a bad thing. I'm going to talk to my physician, but I'm also going to talk to maybe my acupuncturist or my
you should check it out. You should do your research. Well, Jennifer Galardi, thank you so much for having and coming on our show. We appreciate you very much.
Oh, pleasure. Anytime.
This is Breaking Battlegrounds. We'll be right back.